Live from Dr. Henry Armitage Memorial High School Levy Room, it's episode 118 of the Horror Podcast. My name is Tyler, and I run Signal Horizon, a magazine dedicated to exploring genre fiction in and out of your classrooms.
And I am Orrin Gray, who is just kind of a weirdo at large.
Weirdo at large, and way cooler than I ever would be as a result. But tonight on the Horror Podcast, we're going to spend some time talking about what we've been watching, what we've been reading. We will help you find some free genre content on the internet. And finally, we are going to spend the remainder of the episode exploring Waterworld 2, also known as Split Second from 1992. But before we get there, Orrin, what have you been reading, watching, working on? What's new at Castle Gray?
So I just watched two movies that were like really early films by Alex de la Iglesia, which is the guy who made 30 Coins, which is on HBO right now that everybody's into. I had never seen practically any of his films, so I got for review from Severin 4K discs of Day of the Beast and Perdita Durango. So I watched those back to back, which was maybe a mistake watching them back to back, but
too much. Did you enjoy them?
Maybe it was a little too much. I enjoyed Day of the Beast. It was really good. Perdita Durango had some pacing problems, but I mean, there was some really good stuff in it. Like, it's got a really young Javier Bardem in it.
Oh, cool.
And he's just completely bonkers in it. All the performances in it are pretty good. And it's got Screaming Jay Hawkins in it, just kind of being Screaming Jay Hawkins, which is great.
Well, it sounds like there's enough to make watching certainly worthwhile.
Yeah, they were fun. Very good.
And they're out right now from Severin, or they will be soon?
I think they will be soon, I believe.
Okay.
I think they're coming out like toward the end of the month. But
very good. Anything else going on in your neck of the woods?
Not a ton. I'm still reading my way through the Hollow Ones, the new Chuck Hogan, Guillermo del Toro thing.
Oh, okay.
So I'm still making my way through that. So there'll be a review of that on Signal whenever I finally finish it.
Wonderful. Yeah, that's, not to talk shop at the beginning, but I wish we could review more books, I think reading is super important. As an English teacher, like, that's an easy sell for me. But compared to a television show or a movie, it just takes so much more time,
Yeah, like, I've been reading this one like a chapter a day, basically, for the entire month.
Yeah. And
it's a pretty fast read, so I'm almost through it. But still, that's like, 18 days or whatever, right? And, I watched 2 movies yesterday.
Right. Yeah, and it is just like, I could kill an hour by reading, which is absolutely true. But, at best you're looking at least for me, I'm not the fastest reader in the world. I'm certainly not the slowest. But you're looking like one a month, maybe? I don't know.
Right, yeah.
So, it is what it is. Well, I know you know a little bit about South by Southwest. I don't want to step on you. We're not leaving anything off of your what you're watching or excited about list, are we?
Nope.
Okay. Because over the span of probably the next week or so, our podcast audience is going to get a lot of, certainly our reading audience at Signal Horizon is going to be bombarded by it, but we have our South by Southwest coverage, and I would tell you it is massive. We're going to end up covering something like 15 movies, a half a dozen different television shows, but this is the way an online festival should function. I just think that technology-wise, it's super interesting. We've watched some of the tech stuff in class because I think it's been worthwhile and really valuable, and so many great movies. So a couple I want to highlight. I think Tracy Palmer, who's our television editor, is going to come on an episode sometime next week, and we're just gonna talk about South by Southwest. So stay tuned if you want more of that. But I'll tell you what I've really enjoyed so far. Number one, premiering tonight, so I can't say too much about it because I think it started 8 minutes ago. But our good buddy Philip Jalot has a new movie called The Spine of Night, which is rotoscoped Masters of the Universe meets heavy metal. It is fantastic.
If anyone remembers Ralph Bakshi's Fire and Ice, it's that same kind of art, definitely.
Yeah, same kind of art, and I also think it's just incredibly brave to tell this big epic, sword and sorcery story of using this very specific style. I don't know.
Yeah.
So that's definitely one to check out. And the second is a movie called The Sound of Violence, which will probably end up being my festival favorite. And the long story short is an audio student, right? She was studying audio mixing or something like that in college, and she puts together this series of audio compilations, mostly because she spent the better part of her youth as somebody that was hearing impaired. So she has realized to her, when violent things happen, she can not only hear them now that she has her hearing, but also she can visualize them and feel them. So it becomes this kind of infinite feedback loop, and it is fantastic. It features fantastic performances. It's got a couple of really gnarly, gruesome scenes in it. So yeah, it was a ton of fun. I highly recommend it. I don't think it's got a release date yet, but it's super worth it. So, and the last thing, in the vein of trying to put the smarter twist on what we were talking about, we spent all of the last month talking about folk horror. And there is a fantastic documentary coming out from Kier Janice, and I'm totally butchering her name, but she is one of the founders of a couple of those classes where they really go in depth, right? Of looking at the power and the messaging of horror films. So it's Miskatonic University, if anybody's ever caught any of that, but this is all about folk horror, and its title is Woodlands Dark and Days Bewitched, A History of Folk Horror.
Yeah, it looks super cool.
Very cool. And the one term I have read from a myriad of different reviews is exhaustive. And it's like 3 hours and 40 minutes. So
nice. Oh, damn.
Yeah. It covers everything. And
that
in fact,
sweet.
Like all the old school stuff that we covered last month, right? The Blood on Satan's Claw gets a pretty sizable chunk of that. But then she ties it into kind of modern folk horror. So we get The Witch, a little bit of The Lighthouse and kind of the reference to that. And it also goes into other people's folk horror. So it's not just British folk horror, but there's a big chunk that focuses on Asian folk horror. And I texted you in the Slack. Yeah. They have No Roy, a whole thing about it, and I was like, woohoo.
Yes, as they should.
Yeah, but I guess that's a recurring trope in Asian folk horror folklore is the sunken city, right? Is the city that was drowned, and now lots of bad shit is happening as a result of it. So I don't know. I found it awesome. Also, that's how the zombie outbreak starts in World War Z. So it's like bringing all these wonderful parts of my loves of horror together in this one film. So
nice.
And the last thing is a non South by Southwest thing. Sorry, my what are we watching list is massive because that's all I've done. So this is a new film that has Barbara Crampton in it. It's definitely like Nordic folk horror, and it's called Sacrifice. And I think is just really subtle, really well done. It's out right now on VOD, and everybody should check it out. Really fun, really creepy. I would not say overly, it's not doing anything different, because you can kind of see the twist coming a billion miles away, but it kind of is tongue-in-cheek with all of that, which makes it makes it kind of like it's winking at you as opposed to trying to pull one over on you. So yeah, check out Sacrifice too.
Okay, yeah.
So yeah, that's it. And that's just like a third of the movies I've actually watched. So
you got me beat. Yeah.
I'm very tired.
I've just been working. Like I watched a bunch yesterday because I had to review them, but like I have not watched much recently, which I'm bummed about. I want to get back to watching more stuff soon.
Yeah,
but
your numbers were great. At the start of the year, you were kicking ass and taking names.
Yeah, I'm not. I mean, they're not terrible. Like I'm not back to 2020 numbers, but
yeah, you're still holding your own.
Yeah.
Well, before we get to our dark corners of the web tonight, I did want to mention, if you want to see me in person, win some awesome prizes, and come be around other people. If you are vaccinated or you feel safe enough to go out, we would love to see you on Friday, April 9th at 7 o'clock. Deep Cuts Horror Trivia is making our triumphant return. I don't know why it would be triumphant, but let's say we are. At the Big Rip Brewing Company in their newly designed party room. So I would love to see everybody there. Would love to give out some free booze, some free movies, whatever else we got. That's just been piling up for a year. Like I've just been waiting to give this shit out. So yeah, come register starting at 6:30 and the game starts promptly at 7. But hopefully we'll see at least some horror podcast folks there. Would love, come and say hi.
What day is that again?
It is April 9th. It's a Friday night.
Okay.
And I did it because it is 2 weeks and 4 days after my last vaccination, right? So it's like, okay, I feel like I'm as, protected as I'm ever going to be. So let's go spend it with some friends and answer some of my shitty trivia questions and drink the not shitty but amazing beer that they have there at the Big Rip. So
all your 5G nanites ought to be fully operational by then. So
yeah. I mean, who knows? Maybe we can get is it Bill Gates or who is it? Is it Bill Gates? Maybe we can get him to Skype in. I mean, after all, he's in our bodies already, or whatever it is. Yeah. Fuck. That obviously we are teasing. Go get yourself vaccinated, please.
Yeah, worst case it turns you into an alligator, and that's awesome.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you might show up on the horror podcast as a movie monster then.
Yeah.
We all want that. So.
Yeah. It's my dream.
So our dark corner of the web this week comes from Nadia Bulkin and our good friends at The Outer Dark. She was on an episode just a week or two ago, and not only is she a previous guest here at the Horror Podcast, she recommended a movie that I absolutely loved, which was The Dark Song, or A Dark Song. A
Dark Song, yeah.
Yeah. Tremendous film. We love Nadia Bulkin. You have to check out her writing, which I think is fantastic. But anytime that we can give a shout out to the folks at The Outer Dark, which, I mean, frankly, they love weird shit as much as we do. So we need all of our weird friends to come together and support one another when we can. So check out the Outer Dark podcast.
Yeah.
And we'll stick a link in there. Orange showed up a few weeks ago, yeah?
Yeah. Yep.
What I missed that episode. What did you talk about?
I actually did one of the quarantine readings, like what we were linking to. So I read a story that I wrote. I forget which one.
It probably involved a classic movie monster. Maybe.
It probably did. I think I read the All Night Horror Show. I think.
Okay.
But I'm not positive.
I think that you read that one at the actual last time.
I did, and so it may not have. That may be what I'm thinking of, and I don't remember. But yeah,
it's an excellent short story. So hey, I'd read that shit all the time too. My family would probably be sick of it. So check it out. That is the Outer Dark Symposium, the Nadia Bulkin episode, and it is on the This Is Horror podcast network. So. All right. Before we get to tonight's question, though, you know something we haven't done in a while?
Oh, good. Yes, I can be bad at this again. Awesome.
Here it is. All right. Okay. Oh, shit. Check this out. This is, I pulled out randomly, the actual category names.
Oh, holy crap.
Yeah.
So now we know what they are, theoretically.
So I will tell you the category, and then I will read you the clue. Are you ready?
Sure.
Okay. If you get more than half, you win a really valuable prize, which is to be decided later. All right. I got nothing. All right. So the purple category that were bats, that would be our monster category.
Sure.
Apparently,
I mean, I like bats and also monsters, so sure, right. Why not?
I mean, theoretically, vampires could turn into bats. I mean, yeah, I feel like that's like effectually topical, but not really. But anyways, in the 1992 movie Army of Darkness, the incantation Ash has trouble reciting properly was a reference to what other classic sci-fi film?
The Day the Earth Stood Still.
Very good. And for bonus points that are worth even less than the nothing we're playing for, do you remember what the incantation is?
Klaatu Barada Nikto.
Well done.
Yeah.
Or necktie, as the movie does.
Yeah, I'm a little bummed that it was a monster question from 1992 and it wasn't the movie we're about to talk about.
That's true. That would have been some shit. But it would also kind of explain why I was not overly familiar with Split Second before, spending the last 2 weeks kind of researching the shit out of it. So, yeah, all right. Army of Darkness probably stole all its thunder.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the eyeball category, and the eyeball category stands for gore or disturbing.
Sure, I mean, that one, sure.
Yeah, vaguely. I get it. Yeah. Okay. How many members does the criminal gang have in The Last House on the Left, the original 1972 version?
4? I've never actually seen it.
I think I have, and I've seen the remake too. 4 is correct, by the way.
I've seen clips of it, but I've never actually seen the whole movie. So
yeah, there are so many of those movies that I'm like, I know I've seen parts of it, and it's probably just from a clip from something else. That's how I definitely feel about it. It's also one of those movies that I will probably never watch because I don't love the rape revenge subgenre. And I think enough people have said that movie is not wonderful when it comes to some of that I will probably just leave that on the Trivia Pursuit card and not revisit. Okay, purple category, which is the brain category, and this one makes total sense, I think. It is psychological horror.
Okay.
What is the color of the lanterns lit at the houses of the Invitation that members in the Invitation see? Huh.
That was weird wording. Red.
Yeah. and like that movie's not all that well known. That's a hard question. Yeah. I love it. It's one of my probably top 10, but that is correct. Yeah. Not to mention totally fucking ruin the ending of that movie.
Right?
Trivia Pursuit. What are you doing?
Yeah, spoiler alert, Trivia Pursuit. Come on.
Jeez. Okay. Moving on to the pentagram category, which is orange and means paranormal. Okay. The final scene in Carrie, the 1976 version, is revealed to be the dream of what character?
Oh, if they want a name, I'm screwed. Yeah.
Yeah, this one's fucking hard, dude.
I got nothing. I don't know the names of anyone from Carrie except for Carrie.
I was at least Carrie and Mom, right? Or...
I mean, Mom has a name, I'm sure. I just don't know what it is.
Yeah, Sissy SpaceX Mom. I got
that.
It is Sue Snell.
I was about to say it's the other girl, but I don't know her name. So yeah,
John Travolta's girlfriend, right?
Right.
Whatever.
Yeah, something like that. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So I got to tell you, so far you're 4 out of 5. That's not bad.
Yeah,
that's not bad. That's good.
Doing pretty good.
All right. The last category is green. It is a globe, and it stands for international horror. All right. Here we go. What is the nickname of the hacker assisting the police investigation in Suicide Club, the 2001 movie?
I have no idea. I actually have that on my shelf, and I haven't watched it yet. So,
the name of the nickname, or the nickname of the hacker, is the Bat.
Sweet.
So, yeah. All right. So 4 out of 6 ain't bad. That wins.
That wins the no prize. We
we could do it like the NPR game shows, and I'd like I will record your new message for your answering machine thing on your phone. So yeah, welcome.
I want a no price like Marvel used to give out, where you just got an envelope that was empty.
Oh, even better.
Yeah.
I'll fucking write your name on it, man. I'll personalize that shit. Love it. Next time I see you, you're getting an empty envelope.
Empty envelope, sweet.
All right.
Wanted.
Speaking of empty envelopes, there's not a single empty envelope in this movie we're talking about tonight, but I got no other segue. So
there's a heart in a box.
That's true. All right.
That's not empty or an envelope, but it gets mailed to somebody.
Yeah. Speaking of presents nobody wants. How about that? Let's turn to today's essential question, which is, how does Split Second handle climate change, and what role does the climate play in creating this movie's horror? So I'm gonna play the trailer and then read the synopsis. So here we go.
In the heart of darkness, in the soul of madness, a cop is out of control.
You ready to die?
Paranoid people with guns are a menace.
Human.
What do you know about the occult?
Yeah, heartbeat. That's yours.
It has the DNA structure of all its victims. It's got your DNA too.
Sweet dreams.
All right, so I don't know if you had any audios with that.
I got like chunks of audio.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Joe Blow, get your trailers together.
Right?
Yeah. But here is what the Internet Movie Database has to say about the description and synopsis of this movie. In a flooded future London, Detective Harley Stone hunts a serial killer who murdered his partner and has haunted him ever since. He soon discovers what he is hunting might not be human at all. So, the only advice I gave to you when you were like, hey, should I pick something? I was like, yeah, pick something from the 90s we haven't talked about. And this was the first movie you mentioned. So tell me, why does Orrin Gray love Split Second so much?
This was one I watched when I was young, and we had the only movies I could watch were whatever was at the video store, like kind of a thing. And so this was a favorite of mine from the video store back then because I really like Rutger
Hauer. Yeah, like you notice that's the last comment the film has. It's like, the rest of this might be a hot mess, but it's got Rutger Hauer.
Yeah, it's but no, it's actually surprisingly pretty good. But I hadn't seen it in a long time, and I had recently gotten the Blu-ray. So when you said something from the 90s, I was like, ooh, we should watch this and that. That'll give me an excuse to watch the Blu-ray because I hadn't watched it yet since I got it. So basically it was that. It was, here's a way to kick me into watching something I just bought not too long ago.
Yeah, I dig it. I like it a lot. And we'll kind of get to that DVD release because I think that's there's an interesting connection to what we're doing at Signal Horizon too. So this is what I will say. It captured for me this kind of perfect encapsulation of late 80s, early 90s, right? Oh, yeah. It's got a dystopian world that is full of like I've hollowed out dome shapes and like indistinguishable pollution and like essentially. So this movie takes place in 2008, and that's like 13 years later than where we're at now.
Right.
And like I think our world probably looks more like 1992 than it does whatever we're getting here. I did think to get back to that essential question before we abandon it completely, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
I like it offers a real discussion about global warming, albeit it all happens in the background, right? Like it all happens via news reports and the title card that we'll talk about in just a second. But like, I don't know, like at some point the news cast that we hear in the background says like the United States has once again blocked an international global warming policy or whatever. Yep. And it's like, dude,
that's literally that's one of the notes I jotted down was like, oh, they got us. They fucking got us.
Oh yeah. Like unabashedly, like the only thing that would have made this better would be maybe watching it during the Trump administration when, like we actually had pulled out of the, Paris climate talks and that kind of stuff. So like it doesn't, despite it being entirely gratuitous, you could make this movie without all of the water, you could, like despite it being a really added and gratuitous element, like I feel like they were at least kind of real with it,
Yeah. One thing I found really fascinating is I watched a bunch of these like 90s dystopian future movies fairly recently within the last few years. I'm really fascinated by how soon they expected the world to go to shit.
Yeah.
Like this was set 16 years from when it came out, right? Like they expected the world to be partly flooded and shitty within 16 years. Like there's like we used to make dystopias, we would set them like 100 years in the future or like 50 minimum years in the future, right? But like in the 90s, we were making dystopias and setting them like 10 years in the future. Yeah. As it was like in like 10 years, everything's going to be shit.
Yeah. Well, and
wow, that's rough, you guys.
Yeah. And very brave, right? Like, so 1992 to 2008 would be like 16 years, right?
16 years, yeah.
When we create our own dystopic film, then you can base it 16 years from now, and I don't think that looks any different than where we're at right now. So yeah, I think it is what it is, and I enjoy all of the water scenes. I think it solves some of the set issues and everything else. So
I mean, one of the great things about this movie is that it didn't, like you said, it did not need to be set in the future. There's no particular reason for it. Like the plot does not rely on it in any way.
Well, and
but it like distinguishes it, right? Like I can always remember this one because it's set in the rainy, flooded future. So I'm like, oh, it's that one, right? Like,
yeah. And I think maybe perhaps the title card does a better job of describing all of this, right? So the title card is London, 2008. After 40 days and nights of torrential rain, the city is largely submerged below water, a result of the devastating effects of continued global warming. The warnings ignored for decades have now resulted in undreamed of levels of pollution where day has become almost endless night. The future has never looked more dangerous. So the 40 days and 40 nights thing, right, is your first inclination. There is some pretty significant and heavy-handed biblical allusion here, right?
It seems like it, though. I don't know to what end, really.
Yeah, so I've read like stuff on the peripheral that there is like rivers flooding generally are used quite a bit as a rhetorical device in the Bible generally, but the big reason why they're all underwater is because the Thames, right? The Thames, I think I'm saying Thames, has completely overrun its banks, right? And everything is this big chaos. Not to mention our monster at the end, right? Like really, I think one of the highlights of this film are how the two male leads get along together, you know? And somebody says to somebody says to Rutger Hauer, like, I don't think it thinks it's Satan. I think it is Satan, right? Mm-hmm. And then Rutger Hauer says, like, then I'm going to kick Satan's ass or something like that, right? And it's just great. So I think that that relationship is really important. And I think, is kind of an indication that there's a lot to this movie, and it's really fun. And I think it kind of riffs off of the buddy cop film.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like I feel like one of the reasons I really like Rutger Hauer is that pretty much always in movies that he's in, he gets a role that would normally go like to like it would he gets the kind of role that would be this like really macho tough guy, right? In most things. And he plays it with some kind of weirdly unexpected, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like fragility or whatever. Like there's definitely like, he's not just your average maverick cop character, right? Like if Clint Eastwood or whoever had played the same character would have been played completely differently. And so like there's that element, but also like just the whole element of the two characters interacting. It's this very cliched buddy cop thing where like he's the maverick cop who doesn't play by the rules, and the other guy's the very straight-laced character, and blah blah blah. But like both of them play it almost as a parody of that. So it's very weird.
Yeah, I think Rutger Hauer knows what he's doing there, though, right? Like he is like, I can't get over how. Sorry if you hear a little bit of noise. That's because I have a partner in crime tonight. The little mini monster is floating around the studio. So I think he knows what he's doing, because in the first 2 minutes of this movie, right? Like he's walking around, he's lighting a cigar with a blowtorch.
He shows his badge to a dog.
Yeah, and calls the dog a dickhead.
Right.
Yeah. He's like, I'm the police, dickhead, and it appears as if the dog understands.
Yep.
So, yeah. And if you, I'm gonna link to just a fantastic Diabolique magazine article that goes into the nitty gritty of this particular, this particular movie, about like the 12 different iterations that it had. Right. Mm-hmm. It really wasn't supposed to be in the future, right? It was supposed to rely much more on the buddy cop kind of mentality. But the movie that got in its way was this Lou Diamond Phillips, like, detective procedural. And I didn't write down the name of it, but it's called like The Last Ride or The Last Sign or something like that.
The First Power?
First Power. There we go. Yeah. Which beat it to kind of the theaters, and they were like, well, shit, what do we do now?
Right, because it's also like a Satanism-y police procedural, yeah. Yep.
Exactly. So they were like, I know, let's put it in the future. And yeah. So, I mean, they were able to craft something, and then they went through like 3 or 4 different script revisions, and as I understand it from that Diabolique article, like, they were writing pages of the script like the day before they actually happened, you know, like they were
that seems legit, like
yeah, and they weren't necessarily working with a ton of money or a ton of time, and that helps give this whole film a really disjointed vibe that I think if you like it, then it goes well, right? It helps prove its point. If you don't, you're like, God, this is a fucking mess, you know? And cool. I see both sides of that.
I mean, it is absolutely a mess.
Yeah.
But I love it. But yeah, it's definitely a mess. And like, and one of the things that I love about it is kind of serviced by that in some ways, which is that like Rutger Hauer is again playing like the classic maverick cop character from this kind of era. And like most of those classic Maverick Cop characters, like he's got this like psychological file, right, of how messed up he's supposed to be. But unlike pretty much all the rest of them, he actually seems like he does have a problem. Like he seems like he's actually got an anxiety disorder.
Yeah, yeah.
And he has a panic attack at one point. Like as someone who has panic attacks, that's 100% what a panic attack is like.
Yeah. Well, and like this is kind of a tangent, but I think so I have clinical anxiety too, right? And it's a relatively new phenomenon since the kids have been born, and I don't know, adult stress catches up with you or whatever, right? And I thought this movie handled that with none of the satire that the rest of the film kind of leans into, which I could appreciate it. And the panic attack that he goes through in this film reminded me very much of something completely and totally opposite, which is a fantastic show on Apple TV called Ted Lasso, which won a bunch of Emmys, and it's got Jason Sudeikis, who's from Kansas City, who's a good dude, but he has a panic attack halfway through, and it almost like evoked some sort of response out of me, I'm like, Jesus Christ. And the same for this thing, for as silly and as campy as moments of this film are, to have something real like that, it's like, oh, okay. Somebody writing, directing, producing had to have had something similar to that. Or maybe Rutger Hauer himself, who knows?
Like he seems like he genuinely has an anxiety disorder, and both characters in their kind of over the top in some ways reaction to the monster feels a lot of ways like a more realistic reaction to a monster than most movies give you, where like it essentially rewrites their personalities to some extent. They're like, they're just like, holy crap, I've seen a monster and now I believe completely different things because that was definitely a monster and I didn't believe in those before, but now I suddenly do. So let me lean into that.
No, I appreciated all of that, and I think that all only benefits from the fact that you also have this relationship between the two detectives that is charming and doesn't ever feel mean-spirited, right? So I'm talking the relationship between Harley Stone, who's played by Rutger Hauer, and Detective Dick Durkin, who is played by Alistair Duncan, who's a relatively famous character actor as well. Like, they are sweet, and they and like even Rutger Hauer, when he's playing up the asshole mentality, like it's got a big brother kind of feel to it or something. I don't know. I could just watch the two of them banter for 90 minutes and it would be plenty fun.
Yeah. And there's like there's not the like one of them is right and one of them is wrong that you normally get in this kind of movie. There's very much kind of a both of them are a little bit wrong.
Yeah, and combined they're mostly right, but also still kind of wrong, Yeah. And like as bumbling and as silly as Durkin is, I think he's good-natured and like enough of enough of Rutger Hauer's character is rubbed off on him by the end, right? Like he's like, we need bigger guns or something like that. Right. That is just kind of out of character for him, but it's like, oh, this shit's kind of rubbing off. Okay, I get it.
Well, and like, so one of the things I loved about the way they portrayed him is that so most of the time, right, you've got this Maverick cop who is right about everything, even though he's doesn't play to the rules and he's all this stuff, and then you've got this real straight-laced guy who's supposed to be the top of his class and all this stuff who is wrong about everything, right? Except in this case, like Rutger Hauer's right about the thing they're dealing with because he's dealt with it before. Right. The other guy is basically a polymath. Like he learns like 6 books of Satanism in a night.
Yeah.
He reads them all like in one night while he's sitting in his car or something, and then he like knows it all. He's rattling it all off later from memory. Like the dude is a legit genius in this movie.
Yeah, and that's why it kind of to me felt like like it felt a bit like a movie that was made only about the peripheral characters in a Buffy the Vampire Slayer like film, right? Like it would be like a Buffy movie without Buffy, right? Because like you have Rutger Hauer as your typical like muscle like warrior character. You got this guy who's the genius, you know, and Kim Cattrall, who we can talk about in just a moment, in some ways acts as the kind of sweet ingenue or whatever. But you know, that part of the film, I felt, you know, like playing up the buddy angle of the buddy cop stuff. I was like, oh, okay, all right, I'm down for this. So let's talk a little Kim Cattrall. All right, shall we?
Yeah.
No movie in the early 1990s would be complete without a shower scene, and Kim Cattrall has her own, and I am 100% certain that was a compelling reason for 12-year-old me to watch this film. You know, I didn't, but trust me, if you would have told me it had a shower scene in it, I would have been like, okay, I guess I'll stay, you know, awake late and watch it on HBO or whatever. So, she's go ahead.
Oh no, you go ahead.
I was just gonna say, the relationship between her and Rutger Hauer is weird and strange, but also 100% believable, and they're sweet together.
Yeah, they're great. Like she has very little to do in this movie, but she makes enormously the most of everything she does have to do. Like, she's very like charming and funny for the brief time she's on screen. She's not just the character to get put into distress, even though that is what happens to her. Like she breathes a lot of personality into the like 10 minutes she gets.
Yeah. She probably doesn't have a ton of lines, but like that shower scene that we were talking about, like it leads to a confrontation, but that confrontation doesn't happen because she was attacked in the shower. Like he draws back the curtain and she's like, what the fuck, man? I'm just trying to take a shower. And I loved that, right? Because it inverts that trope and it allows that kind of sardonic nature of her to kind of bleed through, right? And I found his treatment of her to be sweet and honest, and they are both very wounded, very kind of screwed up people that cling to each other, and that feels kind of real, you know?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it's the characterization, and I think it entirely lays on the actors, because there's not a ton in the script to support this. But like the characterization of the characters is all really good, and I think that's all. I think that's all on the actors, and I think that might also all benefit from them rewriting the script on the fly, like they must have done, because it gave the actors kind of wiggle room to do whatever felt right at the time.
They had a lot of freedom, right?
Yeah.
And the one thing that would have ruined all of that, right? Because Kim Cattrall is great, but she's not in it a ton, so her influence is subtle at best, right? So that really the bulk of selling this movie comes to Rutger Hauer, and if he's not ready, right? And if he's not 100% sold in the choices that he's going to make, I don't think this movie is nearly as fun as it is, but he's super game to be very big here. I absolutely love the performance, and it makes it a lot of fun to watch, I think.
And as much as we've harped on like the characterizations of, you're right, this is like the most 90s movie. Like there's a Gatling shotgun before all things are done. Like it's very 90s. It's very much that
it is it is a Gatling shotgun that shoots like one shot every 45 seconds. It's like, this is the most pointless gun. I am relatively certain like somebody gifted enough can reload the gun faster than the Gatling can shift over, like the rotating mechanism can. It's like, oof. It told me that the prop budget was spent on the gun, maybe not necessarily the firing or trigger mechanism, but whatever.
And the monster also, which we haven't talked about yet, is another thing that is both harmed and benefits by the script getting so revised. Like, because the thing I love about the monster is that they don't ever give it any kind of coherent explanation.
None.
like they hypothesize that maybe it's Satan by the end, and like they know that it absorbs the DNA of the people it kills. But that's it. That's all you get. It's just this 10-foot tall thing that's clearly just a xenomorph from Alien. Like it's 100% just that. They it's a dude, but it's got like a visor, like it's wearing like a motorcycle helmet. Visor for some reason. But other than that, it's basically just the thing from Alien, only 10 feet tall.
I wish I was better versed in comics, but you get a lot of comparisons. There's this great comparison in this Den of Geek article that I will link to. That the title of the piece is the unofficial Venom movie you probably didn't even know about. And it looks like Venom, and I like that wasn't necessarily my bag. But if you look at those photos next to each other, it's like
if Venom were skinny and wore a motorcycle helmet.
Yeah.
100%.
So the Diabolique article I mentioned earlier has this great quote about the monster and how it is kind of messed up. All right. The quote I dragged out was, "The creature is eating the hearts out of its victims to gain their souls, but somehow also absorbing their DNA. It's focusing on people with the star sign Scorpio because it's also the water sign, which has something to do with the rising river. By making Stone, who has been left with a psychic link to the creature, its final victim, as his partner was the first, it will complete a circle of power that makes it invulnerable." Or something.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, I was like, what? Okay.
And something I love so much, like, we have all this we've just talked about, right? Like, it's a huge monster. It's this 10-foot tall, venom-looking dipshit, right? Like, it's maybe Satan. It's eating people's hearts. It's clearly a monster. Like, its hands are huge. It's got giant, crazy teeth. It's definitely a monster, 100%. But it's also, like, a person, right? It uses a shotgun at one point.
Yeah.
It writes messages for the police. It mails something to Harley Stone. Like,
can you imagine that monster showing up at the post office? I'd like a book of stamps, please.
Like, it is. This was clearly, this could very easily, with almost no changes to the script, have been like a Silence of the Lambs type police procedural serial killer movie. Like, it would have taken almost nothing to change this. Like, you've got the dude, he's using a shotgun, you've got the dude. Like, all you have to do is take out the monster bits, right? Which is almost nothing in the movie. But no, instead, it's just a monster that does all that shit.
Yeah, right. With zero. I think there is a passing explanation from Durkin that maybe he can also... he's a shapeshifter too? Maybe?
Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, well, okay, so here's the first problem I had when I saw this monster, okay? I was like, hey, wait a minute. The first time we get introduced to the monster's POV is in the disco at the very beginning, and he's in the middle of the fucking dance floor.
That was fine. So, what?
Granted, it is a weird, like, BDSM, like, dance club. Not that people that are into that are weird, whatever. I mean, it's a
little weird, yeah.
Right. It's this futuristic, thing, right? So I guess maybe if there was an 11-foot tall, like, oil monster floating around the dance floor, people would be like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right. Be like, oh, shit, just another night at Fred's, or whatever.
It's here again.
Yeah, right. Oh,
right,
fuck.
Yeah. But no, it's a whole thing.
Yeah.
I think in the scenes in the club, I think it's supposed to be behind a wall. I think it's supposed to be behind a wall and looking through a wall, I think. But it's not all the time. Like, you're right. At least at one point, the POV shot is pretty clearly in the middle of the crowd. But I think it's supposed to be behind the wall.
All right, Orrin Gray retcons this puppy to make sense of the big oil monster.
I honestly like it better if the big oil monster's just hanging out there like, what? No, this is fine. He's in here all the time.
He's got like a ratty I Love New York t-shirt on. Yeah, like he's just trying to blend in. Yeah. Okay, I like it. Okay, so let's do 4 corners or 4 movies, all right?
Okay.
What were your 2 here?
So my 2 were... Let me make sure I'm right here. So I picked I Come in Peace, which is basically... So earlier I was going to say that if Dolph Lundgren had been cast instead of Rutger Hauer, you'd have a very different movie. And I Come in Peace is essentially that movie, because it is Dolph Lundgren teamed with like a very straight arrow FBI agent in this buddy cop thing, and they're fighting an alien drug dealer.
Okay, interesting. I haven't seen I Come in Peace, so I'll have to check it out.
It's good. It's not good the same way this one is, but it's good in a fun kind of 80s action, blows a lot of stuff up kind of way.
Okay.
It's clearly had a bigger budget than this movie did. or maybe just used its budget for different things. And then the other movie I picked was Screamers, which is, I don't remember the year, but it's late 90s, probably. People on another planet fighting these kind of robots that are basically aliens. It's a movie that's basically aliens, but with robots.
They pop up from the sand, right? Am I making that up?
Yep.
Okay.
No, you're right. Eventually they look like people, like they evolve along, and eventually they just look like people. But the early ones, are these little like saw blade things that pop out of the sand. Yeah.
Very good. Yeah, I could see that. I can see the connections there. Very good. So go ahead. Oh,
I was just going to say, one of the reasons I made that connection is that I want to talk about the sort of lineage backward and forward of Split Second before we're done. So you want me to do it now, or you want me to do it after your two movies?
I'll name my two movies, and then let's talk about that lineage before our letterbox entry.
Yeah.
So I picked Johnny Mnemonic because they have equally absurd takes on the future. But I think that there is like some early proto cyberpunk or steampunk stuff going on in Split Second that I think plays nicely with certainly the aesthetic, right? Like the aesthetic of both films work really, really well together. And then the second I picked was Predator 2, which is often compared to this movie. I think monsters are similar. The kind of hunt mentality is pretty similar.
They're both really, really urban. Like Predator 2, actually, I wish I had picked. Like, you beat me to it, but I wish I had thought of it, because Predator 2 is a really good comparison for this movie. So
yeah. And then on the backside, because it's one of my absolute favorite films, is Mimic, just because of the ending and the subway tunnels, and the creatures I think are relatively similar. But man, and I think that's Guillermo del Toro, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yep. Yeah. So if it gives you another excuse to go check out Mimic,
super good.
Yeah.
Watch the director's cut, though. The director's cut's way better.
Ooh, I don't know if I've ever seen that. I bet you own it, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, of course. Okay, so talk to me about the lineage of this monster and whatnot.
So the lineage of the monster specifically is that so it was designed by Stephen Norrington. And Stephen Norrington is probably better known as the guy who directed Blade.
Ooh, okay.
And also League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, which put him in director jail, deservedly so.
I kind of like that film. I don't think it's good, but it's it's enjoyable at least.
But yeah. But anyway, Norrington had also worked on the special effects team on Aliens and then Alien 3 this same year. So, like, you can definitely see, like, this is definitely a guy who's designed xenomorphs before. Like, the monster in this pretty clearly looks like a xenomorph.
Yeah.
So there's that. It was directed by, and I'm going to have to check his name. It was directed by Tony Maylam, who is the guy who made The Burning from 1981, which is one of the kind of cult classic slasher films from the early slasher boom, but one of the ones that didn't get a franchise. So so that's interesting. And then it was written by Gary Scott Thomas, who is the guy who wrote the remake of The Fast and the Furious, the one that spawned this whole big Fast and the Furious franchise.
Yeah.
So this is an early career writing turn from that guy.
Honestly, like the Fast and the Furious films are buddy cop films. Only they invert the trope, right? But like that kind of witty banter back and forth, the playful nature, the comedic element of action films, like and you can see that in both of those films.
And like a genuine warmth between the characters.
Yes, totally.
The characters in the Fast and Furious seem like they really care about each other.
Yeah. No, you're 100% right. And I think who knows if we would have gotten a Fast and the Furious, because like I definitely feel like at the end of Split Second they're like setting it up to do another film, like
as movies were contractually obligated to do back then.
right like Split Second 2. I don't, would that make it a full second? I don't,
even more Split Second.
Yeah, but like at one point Durkin says to Rutger Hauer, like like we could ride off in the sunset and do this again, or whatever, and Rutger Hauer's like, shut the fuck up, or whatever. Yeah, but they're like, oh, we're setting it up. But yeah, I think it's really important to, especially that last comparison, because that warmth between all of the characters in that film make all of the Fast and the Furious films worth watching and entertaining, and also help elevate, I think, Split Second as well. Yeah. I will admit, at Zombie Camp a couple of years ago, I have way too much time on my hands for that and end up watching movies. That's like the time I do it. And I watched all of the Fast and the Furious films, because like all of my film nerd snobs that know way more about movies and are way more discerning than I am are like, no, legit, the Fast and the Furious films are really good. You need to watch them. And I was like, shut the fuck up, you're messing. And they were like, no, like they're legitimately good.
Yeah,
and
starting with 5 especially, like, yeah, they become actual good movies.
Yeah. 100%. And when the movie where in real life, what's his name? He died in a car accident.
Paul Walker.
Yeah. He died. They played the song that they won, I think, an Academy Award for. Like I like legitimately had real feelings. I'm like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
So
the way they sent his character off, like, it was really brilliant. Like, both, like, it was touching and it felt earned in the movies.
Yeah.
And they didn't just kill him off. Like, he got to live, even though the actor didn't live. Like,
right. Yeah.
It was actually really beautiful the way they handled that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, no, like the Fast and Furious movies are actually legit kind of great.
Yep. And everyone should go watch them. So
especially 5. 5's amazing. 5's the best one. But
well, I can tell you somebody who didn't love those movies or Split Second is our wonderful anonymous Letterboxd user with another 5-star review. You want to read this one, or you want me to?
I can do it if you want.
All right, go for it.
All right, so Split Second, ? More like shit 90 minutes. Take a dash of Blade Runner, Alien, Predator, and a satanic heart theory. Is that a thing?
Nah.
Blend it all together with a camera and lighting crew who are boring as fuck, a script written on loose toilet paper, and a director who can't manage tension or action to save his life, and you have this boring ass movie. Also, I think the lighting and camera crew were actually kind of great in this. I don't know what he's talking about. Like,
yeah. The
thing where like half of the movie was lit by like light reflecting off of water, so it was all shimmery. That was fantastic.
Yeah. Well, and I think that crew had to do a ton with very little, because this budget was so small.
Yeah.
That being said, like he's not wrong about the script. Like the script itself is not good. This
best case scenario, this is a movie that makes strengths of its weaknesses, but it has plenty of weaknesses.
Yeah. And I tend to agree. There's very little real tension. There's, very little of the kind of standard stuff that we expect.
Yeah.
I don't think that necessarily makes it a bad film, though.
Right.
So.
And also, movies in the 90s didn't have that.
Yeah, right.
Like, there weren't movies with tension, and I'm exaggerating, but like that was not the 90s' strong suit.
No, not by any stretch. Yeah. Oh man. Well, is there anything left to say about Split Second?
I don't know, but you are in immediate danger. Someone's about to hit you with a sword.
That would be the little monster floating in here, ready to tell everybody goodnight.
I couldn't see him. I just saw this sword like appear behind you.
Yep.
Oh, it was very good.
That's him. That's our signal that we are close to our hour timeline. He's just supposed to come and whack me over the head with this big metal pipe. So the Unsel House knows how to do it right. Orrin, where can they find more of your stuff on the internet?
I am, as always, Orrin Gray on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Letterboxd, all those places, as well as at orringray.com.
Very good. Well, as long as I stay alive, you can find me at Ty Unsel on Twitter. Otherwise, I'm running the day-to-day operations here at Signal Horizon. If you'd like to write for us, if you'd like to ask me a question, if you'd like to inquire how my head feels after I've been struck over the head with a lead pipe, you can reach me, Tyler, at signalhorizon.com. We're always looking to pick up writers. We're always ready to hear your pitches that are interesting and innovative about the genre we love so much. What are we talking about next week, Orrin?
Next week, we're going to jump almost exactly a decade ahead, and we're going to talk about Fear.com.
Yes! Oh my gosh. It has probably been since I saw it in the theaters that I've seen it. So I'm very excited to revisit it one last time.
Yeah. One last time, and then you'll die.
Yeah, right.
Because it's a cursed thing, right? You watch it and you die, like The Ring.
Yeah, 7 days or something.
All right, man.
All right, everyone, make sure you check out Split Second. Make sure you check out Fear.com. And
I think it's on Tubi, so.
Ooh, free stuff on Tubi is great.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, until then, class dismissed, everyone.